Thank you so much, Summer, for that wonderful introduction. I've come up with three things here: ask, believe, and cultivate. And I would say that in your early career, it is really preparing the ground. It's preparing the ground for your future career. It means you need to take every opportunity you can to learn and experiment. I would say one way to do this is to be really proactive and ask for advice. That way, you are able to learn from others. You can ask more senior academics, you can ask a mentor, a co author, maybe a colleague, or you could simply go online. There are actually dozens of websites dedicated to advice for researchers on pretty much any imaginable topic. You could also participate in peer networks, maybe related to your area of research interest. What is also often a good way is representing maybe your ECR colleagues in your own university or maybe in a professional forum, because we often learn even more when we represent others, because we look at the information differently. So consider getting involved in volunteering in that respect as well. So please make sure that if you are struggling, ask for advice or go online and don't struggle alone. So ask, ask, ask. So that's the first step that I would really like to emphasize. The B is for believe. Believe in yourself, believe in your research passions. And I know that many of you have received maybe advice that says you need to spot a gap in the literature to publish. That's true, and it isn't. Obviously, you're not going to publish something that has been widely published about before. But if you look at an issue just to spot a gap in the literature, you often end up doing research that leaves you completely cold. And really, it's just an exercise in publishing. It's not about the research, it's about getting published. And you may well be able to do that for a few years. I think most academics have done this at some stage, but ultimately, it will destroy your intrinsic motivation. And I think without intrinsic motivation, without real passion for the research you're doing, you might as well leave academia, because that is what being an academic is about. And then also, there's some other advice that I often hear, and that is you shouldn't do me search. What I mean, for instance, is that you can't do research on gender issues if you're female, or you can't do research on ethnicity if you're non-white. Because that's doing research, you're researching yourself. I think that's pure nonsense, because you are uniquely suited to study those topics. So if you have a big idea, then pursue it. Many academics have actually made groundbreaking contributions early on in their career. Do listen to some advice, but don't listen to all advice. Be selective in the advice you follow. Where I do think you would be wise to follow the advice of seniors is if they tell you that your topic really isn't novel enough, because they've read more of the literature, so they have a better grasp usually of what has already been studied. But don't listen if they say this is too novel, you shouldn't do it. And then finally, I think what is really important here in the B of belief is don't measure yourself up against others. I mentioned that before. We all have different career paths, we all have different research paths. So we also all have our own struggles. And remember that even senior academics get rejections all the time. So cultivate the ground for the future. You need to cultivate the ground to make sure it is fertile when you start branching out your research career. It really is the time as an early career academic to try many different things, different journals, different formats of writing, working with different people, and try and see a rejection as an opportunity to learn about what you should do differently, but also realize that you do need a bit of a research portfolio. Just like with financial investments, don't put all your eggs in one basket. So make sure you have some projects that are maybe smaller, are easier to publish, don't have such a long timeline, and have other really big projects where you think you can make a really big quality contribution. And then finally, I would say, even though early on in your career, a lot of your focus will be on publishing, I think it's really important to learn, in addition, obviously, to teaching and external engagement, but these are different topics altogether that we won't be able to cover in this webinar. Also start learning a bit more about funding and impact of your research, both academic impact, but also external societal impact. And also, early career is a really good time to start building your network. Because remember, once you publish, you would like other people to read your work. It's much easier to publicize your research if you have a network, if you can diffuse your research to people who are already familiar with you. And building up these relationships takes time. That's the ABC. Ask, believe, cultivate. But I've also come up with one word to describe the early career stage. Survival. Really, early career, being an early career academic is mainly about surviving. As I said, don't compare yourself to others all the time. We have a baby elephant here. The baby elephant doesn't expect to be able to run as fast or as far as their parents. They need to learn. So focus on survival. If you survive your early career stage, you've done well. I would also say that take every opportunity to ask questions. When you're an ECR, you're actually in a really good situation, because you might not believe this, but no question is stupid. Everyone knows you're still learning. So it is very acceptable to ask questions. It's a great time to ask questions. You can ask questions later on in your career. Don't be concerned about that. But you might feel a bit more guarded, a bit more embarrassed about doing that, because you feel you should already know the answer. And as an early career academic, you're not expected to know the answer. So do make sure, coming back to the A, that you ask.